Good morning, third grade. So I thought it'd be fun if we did something a little bit different today, and I wanted us to experiment with the combination of origami and drawing in this next project. So we are going to be making origami dragon eyes, and you can color them however you want. You can make whatever kind of eye you want, but we're going to follow these kind of basic steps together, and then I'll show you how to draw the eye out. And it should open and close like it looks like a real eye. So let's get to it quickly. So now if you have any kind of problem with these steps, I will put the step by step in your Google Docs so you can kind of take a look at those. But I will walk you through the origami part of this as well as just the drawing part. So what we need to start with is a square piece of paper, and the problem with using just regular white piece of paper, even if it's construction paper or printer paper, is that it's a rectangle. So what I'm doing is I'm going to start by folding up one corner until it perfectly aligns with the other side. So what we're going to see is like about 2 inches of paper on the left hand side. And I am just going to fold that down until it kind of creates like a weird triangle. But you can see on the left there, that little piece of extra paper, we don't need that. The triangle part is what we need to keep, because once we cut that little piece off, it's going to create a square when we open up that triangle. So I'm going to go get some scissors quickly. So now I'm going to do my best to very neatly cut off that little extra piece on the end there. And the neater that you are, the straighter that you are, the better that your overall dragon eye will turn out. So please take your time with this. If you need an adult to help you make sure it's nice and even, that's probably a good idea. But I'm just cutting right along that line there. Alright, cool. So we can get rid of that little extra piece of paper because we don't need that. And we are going to keep this triangle piece right here. Now once we open it up, you'll notice that it is now a perfect square. So good job with that. That's our first step, our easiest step. So now let's get into the folding origami part. And so as you can see, folding it in half like that made it a line down the kind of like diagonal down the center, but we don't really need to worry about that piece. What I am doing is I'm going to take my end and I'm going to fold it directly up. And once I get it nice and even, notice I'm really taking my time to line up the edges so that the edges are perfect. If your edges are slanted in any way or a little bit off, it could really affect the whole process and how the outcome is. So make sure you're taking your time trying to line it up. So then I go ahead and I fold it over again. So I folded it up and then I folded it over to create another very tiny little square. Then we will open it up back to our big square, and what we should see is kind of like a cross now. So we have a line down the center both ways, so horizontally and vertically we have a line. Now I know I didn't show it, but I did move it so that the way that it's looking at me is it looks like a diamond. So my pointy ends are kind of away from me. So it doesn't look like a square right now, it looks like a diamond. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the bottom point of my diamond and I am aligning it so the point touches that middle section. And we know it's the middle because all of our lines kind of meet there, all of our folded lines. So I'm taking that end, folding it up, then I'm taking the kind of top flap of my diamond, and I will eventually fold that downwards. So now we should have both of our top and our bottom points are now touching in the middle. And we know it's in the middle again because of the folded lines. And it should create a shape that kind of looks like this. 2 triangles and 2 diamonds on each side. So then I'm going to flip my whole thing over and I am going to fold it in half. So aligning the top part, making sure it's nice and neat. I'm taking my time, using 2 hands and then folding, pushing down on the edge there. All right, now we have what looks like a bunch of triangles and just pushing all that stuff down. Then I'm going to open up my whole thing, keep the areas tucked in that need to be tucked in. I'm going to flip it back around we still have, now what we should have are the flaps are facing us now. And I am going to take this bottom piece and I am going to fold it up to that middle point again, up to that middle line. And if you can't see the middle line, it should be right in between the 2 points. And again, very neatly folding that up so it hits that line, using 2 hands to fold down the bottom piece. And of course, now I have to do it to the top piece. Holding one finger on that flappy part so it doesn't get all over the place, and using my other hand to meet the top to the center. I'm not overlapping my 2 pieces of paper, I am just folding them down so that they just meet, they just touch. If they overlap, it could kind of affect the whole outcome of it. So they are just meeting in the middle, not overlapping. All right, so now when I open up my whole piece, keeping those triangle flaps down, I'll flip it over and I will open up the entire thing. So those little triangle flaps will open on both ends. So we have a square again. Now what we have is a square with a bunch of folded lines in it. This is exactly what it should look like. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like 7 folds in your paper. All right, so now I'm going to take my 2 top points and I'm going to fold those little guys down. Only one, so it should just be a tiny little triangle. And then I am going to fold it up again on the next line. Sorry, it's a little tough to see there. Fold it up again, do the same to the top part. On that next line, I am going to fold down and give it a good push down. So now on the inside here, we should have 2 flaps. And on the inside, this is where we're actually going to draw our dragon eye. So we are going to take a quick pause and we're going to go into a quick little drawing tutorial, and then we'll go back to folding the rest of our origami dragon eye. Okay, so I'm going to grab my pencil because we always draw in pencil first, just in case we mess up. And I'm going to kind of sketch out where I really want my eye to be. Now your eye should be pretty much centered right between those 2 flaps and right where, you know, all the folds meet in the center, creating that point. So I'm kind of drawing this shape that looks like a regular eye. It's relatively rounded, but then it also has kind of like a little point off to the left-hand side, if you see that. And now I'm going to draw in the center a diamondy type shape for my pupil, for my dragon's pupil. And again, you can look up different references for different kind of dragon eyes that you would like to draw. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same one as mine. You can use different colors, different shapes. It's completely up to you. And then I'm going to go in and draw a few extra layers of kind of, what would you call it? Kind of like the eyelid and some more layers for where the scales will be on the dragon eye. So next I'm going to take a black marker and I'm going to trace over all of my lines. I am going to speed through the coloring and the rest of the drawing process just a little bit, because if I don't, this is going to be a really long video. So notice that I'm taking a marker and I am creating scales on the outside of the eye. You can use whatever colors you want. Again, I'm using purples and pinks because I feel like it. And inside of the eye, I'm creating this like starburst effect. So I am layering my colors, my crayons. I'm working from the pupil out towards the rest of the eye so that it kind of creates this effect that it looks like it's exploding from the pupil itself. And again, I'm mixing quite a few different colors inside of here just to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm coloring lightly, and then I go back in and I push a little bit harder if I need to. Notice that I kept a little tiny spot inside of the eye white. That is kind of like a highlight in the eye because our eyes are wet. So there should always be like a shine on the eye. So a little piece of white that you leave and not colored in. Alright, so now I'm going to take my crayons and I'm going to color in the rest of the scales. I'm making mine pretty interesting. I'm using purples and pinks, like I said earlier, to color in my scales. And I'm using markers to outline the scales to give it some more depth, so it's just not all plain crayon. And you can do this as well if you'd like to. If you only have crayons, you can just use crayons if you want to. That's fine. Or markers. Okay, and again, if this ever goes too fast, you can always pause the video or go back if you need to. But now what we need to do is fold down again to create the dragon eyelids. So now we're going to take that top flap, we are going to fold down over the eye, and we're going to fold that up the bottom part over the eye. And again, these pieces should not be overlapping, they should just be touching just a tiny bit. So you can still see the eye on the inside, and this part now will act as our eyelids. And for our eyelids, we're actually going to color in some more scales. And notice I created two squiggly lines, and then I started filling in all these like bubbly looking things as the scales with marker like I did previously. And then I'll go in and I'll color these parts with crayons. The only reason why I separated from that inside white piece from the outside that I'm coloring right now is just to make it more interesting, just to add two different kinds of colors for the eyelid. Again, it'll makes it a little bit more interesting for later on. And I'm just going to let this play through, and you can see how I do my scales and my coloring. Okay, so the drawing part is done. We have our dragon eye on the inside and our scales on the outside. Now we just have to finish folding it so that when you kind of push the edges, it looks like the eye is opening and closing. That's going to be our next part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dragon eye, I'm going to flip it over. You should see the back, the white blank back part. And I am going to take my little edge, and I can see my point still, so that center point, I'm going to fold up that point, and you can also see a little diamond that's folded out as well. And bring my triangle point, my diamond point, to that center. And I will do the same to this side. I'm sorry, I know it's hard to see because there's a glare. I'm sorry about that. But both edges should point to the middle then. So now the ending here is a little tough. It takes some time to get used to and to kind of play around with the eye so that it actually works. But I am folding in my edges right here. And these little edges kind of act as handles so that you can use it to play it like an accordion and open it up and close it. The eye itself, the eyelids. So what I'll do is I'll kind of flip this over in a second. I'll hang on to these little edges, and you'll notice I'll be kind of like pushing some areas around here and there, just trying to make it work for myself. If you need to tape some areas, like maybe these guys together, that might work as well. But once you kind of get the hang of it and you flip it around, it will eventually look as though your dragon eye is opening and closing. So have fun with it, see if you can figure out making the front part open and close, and I hope that you really enjoyed this project. I thought it was something different and fun for you guys, so I will see you in the next video. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great week. Bye guys.